All right, we'll just wait one more minute and then we'll get started just in case we have some late people joining. All right, so we're going to get started. So my name is Rebecca. I am a prize administrator for the American Made Challenges at NREL. And just a couple quick housekeeping things. So all attendees will be on mute throughout the presentation. If you have any questions, you can type them into that Q&A panel and we'll do our best to address each question. Some we can answer throughout the presentation. As you'll see, we already had one question come in and that one's been answered. But it's also possible we will be unable to answer some questions regarding teaming or technical questions. So if you have any questions, you can always email us at lprize@nrel.com and we will post them to our forum. So again, thank you for joining us. I'm Rebecca, and giving us an introduction of the L Prize is Brian Walker from the Department of Energy, and then Gabe Arnold and Kate Hickox with the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory will give us a thorough rundown of the concept phase and information on everything from submission expectations to scoring. And then I will give a short demo of our submission platform, HeroX, before we end with a Q&A. And without further ado, Brian, over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Some echo here on the line. Hopefully that's not going to go away. Great. Rebecca, thanks so much. Thanks to everybody for joining today's webinar on the L Prize. This is the webinar to go over the concept phase rules, and really appreciate you being with us today. So in this first section, as Rebecca mentioned, I'll be talking about the L Prize in general terms. And so on the next slide, you'll see that I'd like to start actually by describing the problem that this prize is designed to address. So it's true, as many people on this call and in our communities know, that LED lighting has progressed significantly. It has saved a lot of energy, saved a lot of carbon emissions and money, and utility bills for families and businesses in the process. However, that progress has not been uniform. As you can see on this slide, it comes from the Department of Energy's Solid State Lighting Adoption Report. Some applications approach total adoption. Some, for example, like A-lamps, which are the target of the first L Prize, which was awarded 10 years ago, it's nearing 50%. Today, the average adoption of LED lighting across all segments is 30%. And for the kinds of linear fixtures that are used in many retail or office settings, though, we're still very early in the process, as you can see by the arrows on this slide. We're even earlier for connected lighting, and that's going to be so important for integrating lighting with other building energy loads and also with the grid. So there's been progress. There's still significant potential that remains, but we're noticing that commercial lighting lags, and especially in connected lighting. So then, I guess on the next slide, I can say that for this reason, and because of what we're hearing from stakeholders, we decided that the time is right for another L Prize. We know, for example, that new ideas emerge every day, but we know that they need encouraging. And so that's the role of the concept phase, phase one on this timeline. That's going to seek to spark new ideas, provide feedback on them. That phase is going to be open for 9 months, just opened this past month, as you all know, because you're you're also on this webinar. And that 9-month period, we're hoping is going to be enough time to enable broad participation from students, designers, any other researchers, and lighting innovators who would want to participate. So up to 10 winners, that phase will receive $20,000 each for their concepts. We also know that many advanced features and designs exist, but the pieces don't always come together in a way that is practical for lighting solutions. And that's the role of the prototype phase, which seeks prototype products that go beyond the forms, materials, and functions that are commonly available in commercial lighting today. So that phase is going to be open. When it opens, it will be open for 12 months. And at the time it opens, the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory will be issuing a request for information, an RFI, in an online forum that you're familiar with. It's going to be reachable with the URL at the bottom of this page, as a means for any interested competitor to find teaming opportunities in the final phase of the competition. And for that prototype, again, for phase 2, up to 3 winners are going to split a $2 million prize pool for their prototype. Finally, we also know that it's possible to conduct interesting, sometimes even very applicable research. It's even possible to invent new products, but it's often challenging to move them off the shelf and into the economy where they can benefit the people that make, sell, specify, and install them, and also to benefit the people that use them. And so that's the role of the manufacturing and installation phase, phase 3, which will reward installation of real products meeting the L-Prize technical specifications with incentives for U.S. assembly and manufactured content. That phase will be open for 20 months, 20, and up to 2 winners will split a $10 million prize pool for manufacturing and installation. So this is the overview. I wanted to take some time on this slide. Again, there's more details at that URL that's included on this slide and on every slide here. Now, on the next slide, I want to talk a bit more about the innovation goals and focus of the prize. And so there are 5 major focus areas listed on this slide. And the key takeaway for this is that it's important to execute well with excellence on all of them. So it's not possible to pick and choose. Each of these speaks to different goals that we are trying to achieve. So this is, after all, issued by the Department of Energy. That's where I work. So we're not going to forget about the energy efficiency here described by the luminous efficacy of these products. We're also not going to forget about the fact that quality of light is going to be essential for driving the kinds of adoption that I mentioned on that first slide. We're going to encourage highly preferred light, reinforcing health, productivity, and well-being. We're concerned about connectivity, as I mentioned. It's crucial now in the long term. It's important to integrate those controls to increase energy savings and performance, and also that flexibility I mentioned. And then finally, the last 2 categories, they're certainly last but not least. It's very important for us to reduce environmental impact over the life cycle, and it's also important for innovators to bring that same innovative spirit, not just in physical requirements or engineering design requirements that are conventionally the purview in many technical competitions, but also to recognize, again, that our ambitions are for these products to benefit the real economy, and we need to realize innovation in diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as in technical requirements. So that's why that 5th goal category is located there. Now, on the following slide, the next slide after this one, you'll see that there's a little more specificity. You'll hear more about each of these in depth from both Gabe and Kate later in this webinar, but I just want to stress that there's a breakdown in between each of these 5 categories. The minimum requirements are high because the goal of the prize is to be ambitious. Some of the requirements are mandatory. Competitors can earn points in some areas for exceeding these minima. You can find out more about these, of course, in the rules documents and on our website, also by listening to Gabe and Kate here. I just want to mention that there's a lot more than I'm going to be able to get into in this particular overview. Then on the next slide, I wanted to talk a little bit more about that 3rd phase, that manufacturing installation phase. That's not the major focus of this webinar. It's not the major focus right now, of course, for many of our potential competitors because it hasn't opened yet. But I'll just mention that we're retaining the innovations from the prototype phase. That's our plan in the manufacturing and installation phase. We're going to be emphasizing energy savings and economic benefits, and we're going to be having scoring in that phase that accounts for those U.S. content installation. So we're looking for that innovation to be in real product. So then on the next slide, I wanted to address something that's important. We've already gotten some questions on the forum, as I think Rebecca mentioned. You'll be able to go there to see questions and answers as they come on, as we answer them publicly. We want to make sure to stress that all the contest phases, including the concept phase, all of the contest phases are open to all innovators. So that's, again, researchers, universities, designers, manufacturers, et cetera. It's also not necessary to participate in every phase or with the same ideas or designs or products in each phase. So you can pick and choose. In any combination of phases, you can join one. You can join more than one if you like. Now, again, I wanted to stress the teaming opportunities that RFI that's going to be issued along with the prototype phase is going to be kept open to identify teaming partners interested in production or installation, or both, of course. And that teaming partner list will be published. It will be regularly updated. And there are some examples here of some of the kinds of folks that we're hoping to encourage to participate in some of those teams, including manufacturers, energy savings contracting organizations, utilities, installation contractors, et cetera. So with that, that's the overview that I wanted to make sure that I discussed with you all. And then on the next slide, you'll be able to hear from both Kate Hickok and first up is Gabe Arnold to talk more about the concept phase and the technical requirements in more depth. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Brian. Hello, everybody. As Brian said, I'm Gabe Arnold. I'm with Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, and Kate and I will be talking about the concept phase evaluation process and the technical requirements. Next slide, please. So before I move into the details of the concept phase, I want to start with some information about the type of lighting that is eligible for this L Prize. First, it's a competition to realize the potential of light-emitting diode, or LED technology, and only solid-state LED-based technology is eligible. We've already received some questions asking for more clarification about specifically what types of technologies may be eligible, and answers to this question will be posted soon on the forum on the HeroX L Prize page. And Rebecca is going to demonstrate how to get there in a few minutes. The next point I want to make is that this is a competition for a complete lighting system. And so your submission should include all the system components necessary to meet the L Prize technical requirements. And so that's going to include luminaires, it's going to include sensors, control devices, interfaces, when you get into later phases of the competition, even software. So this is not just a luminaire competition, it's a full lighting system competition. And one thing to acknowledge here when you get to the later phases of the competition is you might need to form teams to pull all those pieces together, maybe not for the concept phase. We're targeting commercial and institutional sector applications. So for example, offices, healthcare facilities, educational facilities, applications where linear lighting such as troffers or linear pendants have been predominant. And that's not to say that you must submit a troffer or a linear pendant. The L Prize does not specify any specific form factors by intention, and innovation in form factors is absolutely welcome. The important thing is that any submission must be appropriate to provide ambient lighting in these commercial applications I mentioned. And so luminaires that are designed or intended specifically for task lighting or accent, display, outdoor, industrial applications, including high and low bay, are not eligible. Next slide, please. So with that understanding, let's dive in on the concept phase. And this phase is now open and we're accepting entries through November 19th of this year. Now this phase is about imagining and documenting a lighting system of the future. It's a system that's energy efficient, it's high quality, it's connected, it's sustainable, and it may address challenges for diversity, equity, and inclusion in how lighting systems are designed, produced, or deployed. There's no physical product that must be created or submitted for this phase. It's really just a documented design. In the later phases of the L Prize, you do need to create real prototypes or commercially available products, but not required for this phase. So this concept phase, it really provides an opportunity to think beyond the constraints that you might have on product innovation when you need to develop a real product for things like cost, form factor, or materials. So this is really a great phase to participate in with your ideas, big or small ideas. We've got a good number of prizes. We've got up to 10 winners, $20,000 each. So whether you're a manufacturer, big or small, maybe you're a lighting designer or a specifier, a student or a group of students in a university, a researcher, or even an individual working out of your garage, we're inviting and welcoming your participation in this phase. Next slide, please. So as Brian showed, the L Prize includes a set of technical requirements underpinning all phases, addressing efficacy, quality of light, connectivity, product life cycle, and innovation and inclusion. And under each of these topics, there are technical requirements that are organized into mandatory minimums that all submissions need to meet, and those are the check marks on this diagram. And some are optional points available for innovation that goes beyond the minimums, and those are the empty checkboxes on this diagram. And Kate's going to elaborate on these areas a little bit further in a few moments, and what I want to do is talk through more of what you need to submit and how we will evaluate it against these requirements. Next slide. The concept phase submissions will be evaluated differently from the other phases. We've formed what is called in the official rules an expert reviewer panel. And so this is a panel of experts we have assembled. They're anonymous, we don't say who they are, but they bring expertise in all the different topic areas of the L Prize. They're the ones who will be scoring and judging your submissions. And the judging criteria they will use varies by phase. For the later prototype and manufacturing and installation phases, there's going to be real products to judge, and those will need to be tested. And part of their judging will be based on the actual tested performance of those physical products. For the concept phase, there's no physical products, and alternatively, what you're going to provide with your concept design is your estimates of the expected technical performance of your concept, and a written technical justifications for that estimated performance. And this is a key part of what the expert reviewer panel will be judging in the concept phase: your performance estimates and your written technical justifications that go with it. They'll also apply a score to your submission for a couple of other things, for technical feasibility and for innovation, which includes technical innovation and innovation for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So next slide, let's look at this a little bit more closely. So here's a table that comes straight from the official rules document. It's a little busy, I'm sorry, but it's an important one for the concept phase. It's called Table 4 in the rules, and it describes exactly how the expert reviewer panel will score your concept phase submissions. They're going to score your submissions across 3 different criteria: technical feasibility, technical performance, and innovation, which again includes both general technical innovation and the DEI innovation. In each of these 3 areas, there are 2 statements that they'll score, from 0 to 3 or 0 to 5, depending on the topic. So there is some different weighting here you want to be aware of. So if we look, if we use technical performance as an example, that's the 3rd and 4th row down. They'll score the statements: the proposed concept meets the minimum technical requirements and has well-supported technical justifications for the proposed performance. And the statement: the proposed concept earns points from Table 3 with well-supported technical justifications for those points. And in scoring these, the reviewer panel will look at the estimated performance you have provided with your concept and those technical justifications, and provide a score of between 0 and 5, with 0 meaning they strongly disagree with the statement there, 5 that they strongly agree based on the information you have provided with your submission. So there's 10 points in play for this technical performance area. There's a little bit less, 6, for the technical feasibility area. I think that's indicating, I think we're open to some bigger ideas. I don't want to say pie in the sky, but bigger ideas for this phase. And then there's 10 points available for innovation. So that's 26 possible points at play to be scored by the expert reviewer panel, and the highest scores will be recommended as the possible winners for the $20,000. So next slide, I want to focus on even further on this technical performance criteria and talk through how this works. And so this is another really important table of the official rules for the concept phase. It's table 3, and this is breaking down some of those check marks and open check boxes I was showing earlier. The text is way too small to read here, and it hurt our eyes to try, so don't really try and do that. We're not going to go through it, but at least wanted to show it to you here. And maybe just look at the column headings. And what it does is summarize the minimum technical performance requirements that your concept must meet, and additional optional technical points that may be earned for going beyond the minimums. We're just adding a little bit more detail here. The requirements, next slide. So let's walk through this a little bit more detail. So here's another view of table 3 again. This one's just in portrait, same information though. And it's got the summary of minimum requirements and optional points. And in this phase, because there's no physical products, I'm going to show you how you report your concept's estimated technical performance and associated technical justifications that the reviewer panel will evaluate. So we use efficacy as an example. Give me a click there. There. If we zoom into efficacy, we see that the minimum requirement is summarized as 150 lumens per watt, and that you can earn up to 10 points for higher efficacy performance above 150 lumens per watt. Table 3 is just a summary, so we need to go to Appendix A for the details. So one more click. And so here is the luminaire efficacy table in Appendix A that goes with this requirement. And it includes a definition. It includes further details on the minimum requirement and possible points. And I'm not showing it here, but Appendix A will also tell you exactly how this requirement will be evaluated for each phase and any reference standards. So we see here that you would receive 2 points for above 160 lumens per watt, 4 points for above 170, all the way up to 10 points for over 200. One more click. And so what you're going to do is report the estimated lumens per watt performance of your concept using what is called the concept phase technical performance and scoring form. So there's a little screenshot there. If we go to the next slide, we'll zoom in on it. So here, this is an excerpt of that form looking at the efficacy table, and the technical performance and scoring form has one of these tables that you would fill out for each requirement. So one for efficacy, one for color rendering, one for lumen maintenance, one even for things like interoperability and so forth. So in the case of efficacy, what you're asked to do is estimate the expected lumens per watt that would be delivered by your concept, and that goes into this first field, the white box. The second field, you're going to tell us how many technical points that would earn based on your claimed lumens per watt performance, up to 10. So you can enter 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, or 10. And then in the final white box, you would provide a written technical justification for that estimated lumens per watt performance. This technical justification is important, and we're not looking for a book here. Your response is actually limited in the form to 1,900 characters, and it must fit in that provided space. But you should demonstrate to the expert reviewer panel that number 1, you understand the requirement. Number 2, you understand the technical challenges and or trade-offs you might face in developing a real product that would achieve that expected performance. And number 3, that you've proposed a technically valid solution. Demonstrate that you've done some homework. The expert reviewer panel is going to consider your estimated performance, how many technical points you claim to have earned, and the credibility of your technical justifications in scoring your concept entries. And so you should try and do a good job with this form. Next slide, please. So this form is a key part of your overall concept submission, which is also going to include a cover page, a PowerPoint summary slide about your concept, a written narrative of any innovations or features that you want to call out for the expert reviewer panel for their innovation scoring. It would include some drawings of your concept and a system one-line diagram, and optionally a projected cost estimate and bill of materials. That's the full package, and page 14 and 15 of the official rules provide you more information on each of these submission elements. I think the last thing I want to call out here is that your submission is not intended to be made public except for the cover page and PowerPoint summary slide. So don't put any proprietary information that you'd want becoming public in the cover page or the PowerPoint slide. And you should check the terms and conditions of the official rules for any questions that you might have about what might be made public and any questions you might have around intellectual property. So I hope that was useful in helping you understand the evaluation process for the concept phase, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to Kate to provide more background on the technical requirements and goals.
Great, thank you. Hope everyone can hear me. My name is Kate Hickox. I'm also from Pacific Northwest National Lab. So in the next few slides, I'm going to review the background and high-level goals for each of the technical requirement areas that Gabe and Brian had mentioned earlier. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail about the requirements. Instead, we recommend that you read through the LPRIZE rules document, Appendix A, to see the concept phase details for each of these areas. I'm just going to go, this is high level. So as we stated previously, the goal of the LPRIZE is to produce high efficacy luminaire systems with excellent color quality, glare control, flicker control, and advanced connectivity. There are technology and performance trade-offs across each of the technical areas. For example, maximizing luminous efficacy typically has a negative impact on lighting color quality and vice versa. So the LPRIZE aims to drive technology innovations to overcome the technical trade-offs and realize exceptional performance in all areas. The DOE estimates that LED luminaires could achieve approximately twice their current average luminaire efficacy through additional improvements in LED materials, light extraction, optics, luminaire design, and electronic configuration. So winning submissions will achieve high efficacy goals along with excellent performance in the other areas. Next slide. The quality of light requirements address criteria such as glare control, color rendition, and flicker. The LPRIZE will push participants to incorporate quality of light benefits in the design. LEDs present opportunities to create varied spectrum, color quality, or dimming ranges, for example. And so the LPRIZE encourages participants to utilize what is unique about LEDs that can help lighting become more healthy and more supportive to users. In some cases, paybacks for connected lighting systems may be improved through quality of light metrics. If the lighting could be used to improve health, productivity, or well-being, this may have a positive effect on the quality of the environment or increases in worker productivity, and this may give added value to the luminaire system. Next slide. So connectivity is essential to realize the full value of LED technology and smart buildings. The LED prize connectivity requirements include aspects such as interoperability, addressability, and energy reporting, which are all fundamental capabilities for the next generation of connected and energy optimized buildings. Smart buildings cannot be achieved with siloed building systems, and we must connect systems together to unlock the full potential. The LPRIZE requires luminaire level lighting controls with sensors in each luminaire, which can provide granular sensor data to the lighting system and other building systems to optimize the performance. Beyond this, we're looking for innovation in systems that can diagnose or even predict component failures to enable building operators to streamline their operation and maintenance practices. We're also looking for innovation in new grid interactive capabilities that will help us move towards a more dynamic and resilient energy future, where building systems can respond dynamically to grid needs. This can save customers energy, reduce carbon emissions, and improve reliability of the electric grid. And finally, the connectivity requirements include some optional points for standards-based upgradability for sensors. And this will support a more future-proof lighting system, or more future-proof lighting systems, rather. There are also optional points for safer, easier to install plug-and-play connections that use low voltage class 2 DC wiring and connections. So the winning L-Prize system will be highly connected, digitally integrated, and grid interactive. Next slide. This L-Prize has a life cycle requirements section that includes driver lifetime, replaceable components, lumen maintenance, and design for disassembly. These elements together support a move towards a circular economy. In a circular economy, waste is minimized and the value of products, materials, and resources is maintained in the economy for as long as possible. This is essential to supporting a low carbon and resource efficient economy. Life cycle analysis studies show that the two most significant factors contributing to the environmental impacts of luminaires are luminous efficacy and useful life. And so the L-Prize life cycle requirements address these factors. Since a circular economy starts at the very beginning of a product's life, both the design phase and production processes have an impact on materials, resource use, and waste generation. The L-Prize product lifecycle requirements aim to reduce environmental impact over life cycle with sustainable use and end-of-life considerations, starting with the concept phase. And next slide. Okay, so the L-Prize invites participants to incorporate technical innovations into the submissions, as well as innovation for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how the systems are designed, produced, deployed, or installed. Examples of technical innovation areas of interest to the DOE include innovations that achieve excellent optical control and distribution of light while achieving high efficacy, innovations that improve ease of installation, commissioning, and use of the system, and use of recycled, bio-derived, or low toxicity materials. And I saw we already got a question about this one, but examples of innovation for diversity, equity, and inclusion include teams led by minority-owned businesses, teams from minority-serving institutions, including historically Black colleges and universities, or other minority institutions, and teams from opportunity zones. Innovations in these areas and others that contribute to the L-Prize goals are encouraged. So more information, as well as a list and a visual map of designated qualified opportunity zones, can be found online, and there's links on page 15 of the L-Prize rule document. The diversity, equity, and inclusion requirements are open to interpretation, especially in the concept and prototyping phases. So as noted in the L-Prize rule document, innovation for technical performance and innovation for diversity, equity, and inclusion do not have specific technical requirements. The expert reviewer panel that Gabe mentioned earlier will consider innovations described in a competitor submission and scoring those aspects. So this is all described in the concept phase submission evaluation section. And that's it for me. I'm going to turn it back over to Rebecca for the HeroX overview.
Thanks, Kate. So I will jump right in. So throughout this presentation, we have emphasized that you do need to read the rules for a good understanding of all of the expectations for the L-Prize. The link to the rules is right here on our americanmadechallenges.org/L-Prize website. And just for clarification, the amc.org website is kind of our informational website for the prize. And the other place that you will be able to find the rules is under the resources tab on our HeroX page, which I will demo next. So our HeroX page, oh, let's go there. So this is where you will find everything regarding our submission platform. So we have our overview, all of the basic stuff, but primarily the first thing that you need to do when you go to our LPrize HeroX page is to follow the page. All you have to do is enter in your email, and then you can follow for any updates, as well as start your team and then begin your entry. So once you've followed and you've submitted as a team, then you can begin your entry by pressing this button. This is what it'll look like for you once you've created a team. So just a couple things. When you are on the HeroX page, make sure you run through all the different tabs. I want to point out the timeline tab. So as we note at the very beginning of this timeline, for a more detailed timeline, please go to the rules, and the link is there for those rules. But you can still follow along where we are on the timeline on our HeroX. From here, I'm going to jump over to our forum. So throughout this presentation, again, we have mentioned the forum. For any questions that we receive in this webinar and over email, the answers and those questions will be posted to our forum. And we have a couple categories right now: the technical Q&A, a Teams Q&A, and the prize administration Q&A. And I think we even went over one of these questions, but so are competitors required to use the same idea in subsequent phases, for example? And our answer to that is they are not required to use the same idea. And you can go onto the forum for the full answer. So the other tab I want to point out is our resources tab. And this one has our lighting rules on it. So this is the main location on the HeroX to find those official prize rules. And some other resources that we have include the concept phase technical performance and scoring form. I realize it says coming soon, but I do believe it's been uploaded, so you can access that there. And we also have our comment form, and I'll go over what that is in a minute once I'm finished with the demo. So just another note on the forum, you can always check our FAQ. It's possible your question could be answered there, but before you submit a question, just make sure we haven't answered the question already by checking out that forum. So the last part that I want to reference in regards to HeroX is what the submission form will look like. So when you have compiled all the parts of the submission package that Gabe went over, you can submit it on the HeroX page. And after you start your team, you click that begin entry button, like I pointed out, and then you have the opportunity to fill out the submission form. And this is what that form looks like. So you have all of the basic boxes, who's on your team, what's your innovation called, and then you can upload all the different pieces of your submission as well. And so the last slide is about the comment period, and it's in regards to that comment form that I pointed out on the resources tab. The requirements and timelines for the subsequent prototype and the prototype phase and the manufacturing and installation phases are provided as a draft right now in the official rules document. We're inviting input on these subsequent future phase requirements and timelines. We are interested in feedback about the timelines. For instance, are the timelines for these future phases feasible for you to participate? We also want feedback on if there are any hurdles to your participation that we might be able to address, or if there are other aspects that should be considered to encourage diversity, equity, or inclusion. So we're looking for input on these questions and more via the comment form. So you can download that from the HeroX website. And then you will need to return the comment form to us by July 16th. And you can return it to our lprize@nrel.gov email. And then any revisions that we make to the requirements or timelines of subsequent phases will be announced with the opening of that phase. And again, we welcome your input. So we will again begin our Q&A now. And just a reminder, for some of the more technical, legal, or teaming questions, we'll likely be unable to answer them right now, but we'll post them to that relevant Q&A section on the forum later, which again, we have put that link up here just as a reminder. And if you come up with a question later, feel free to email it to the lprize@nrel.gov website. And we will jump into the questions. And if you have any others, feel free to submit them while we're answering the few that have popped up. All right, so our first question, I think we answered this, but I'll read it anyways. It comes from Marvin. So as long as the technical specifications are met, is the competition exclusive to light emitting diode technology?
Hi there, Rebecca, and I'll take that one. This is Brian. I'll say that the answer is yes. It does have to be a solid state light emitting diode technology, and part of the reason for that, of course, is that's the way this competition is framed in total. It's also because of the fact that this program, the one that I lead and that is sponsoring the Pride, is a solid state lighting program. But as you're asking, the initial phase of the prize has a relatively open stance to any solid state lighting technology that could be described that way. And then, of course, subsequent phases, the prototype and manufacturing installation phases, they also have detailed requirements, test requirements that don't necessarily apply to all lighting technologies. But we're aiming to be as open as possible there in the concept phase.
Excellent. So the next question, I believe Kate answered this, but it comes from, I'm going to pronounce your name wrong, Muzamo. Can you please provide an example of diversity inclusion? Kate, over to you.
Yes, hi. And I think we did cover that a little bit in the section, so I won't go in great detail. But if you go to the rules document, there are some examples similar to what I listed. So teams from minority-owned businesses or opportunity zones or historically Black colleges and universities. And again, we've provided some examples. It's in no way an exhaustive list. And so I think the expert reviewer panel is going to look at the suggestions that you're making and take those into consideration. So we want to hear from you what you think that means. And, and again, if you want to go to the rules, you can always find those examples written down there.
Thank you for that. So the next question comes from Chris. Efficacy seems like a narrow metric for energy performance. What about lighting power density for meeting the RP? Optical innovations for ideal distributions in applications are lost if only considering efficacy. Can we answer this one?
Yeah.
I'll just, go ahead, Gabe.
Yeah, I'll answer it. So I guess I just want to say thank you for that excellent suggestion here. And it's absolutely right that there is a whole lot more to the energy performance story than just efficacy, including the optical distribution. And so we're going to log this suggestion here, but I want to encourage you to submit this comment through the comment form that Rebecca went over so that it might be considered for the next two phases of the competition.
And I'll just jump in, Gabe, and say I'm noticing there are a couple of questions that might be popping up. If it is more of a comment, I'll definitely encourage anybody who's got something to suggest. Please do submit a formal comment, as we discussed earlier.
All right, thanks, Brian and Gabe. So the next question comes from Jeremy. Regarding the statement that participation can occur at any phase, just some clarifications. Does that mean anyone can submit a phase 2 or phase 3 submission on any phase 1 concept, regardless of the concept originator? And 2, will phase 2 only be allowed on a winning phase 1 concept, or and similar for phase 2 to 3.
Right, so I can take that one, I think, or the two rather, because it did seem like there were two questions. So the first one, Gabe talked about this a bit, but what's going to be publicly announced with regard to the phase 1 winners is going to be what's public, right? What is included on that slide, as Gabe mentioned in the requirements for what you need to submit for phase 1. So that's, at that point, that's in the public domain, right? We're announcing it publicly. And so that is a consideration about anybody who might be interested in carrying through to multiple phases, is that you know, that amounts to basically stating at that point, okay, this is what I feel comfortable sharing in the public domain, and we're not expecting folks to go through some kind of down select. So in other words, anybody can enter in any phase, to answer the second part of your question. But right, if for example, somebody submits a novel concept, and then you would like to, or other people would like to say, hey, that's a really interesting, good idea, and would like to partner on subsequent phases, that's one of the strengths of the competition that we were really trying to encourage.
All right. So the next question is from Jason. Can you submit multiple concepts?
So it's a little bit unclear exactly what we mean by you and multiple concepts. I will say there's some attempt to answer that question as precisely as we can in the rules, and then also with some question and answer information in teaming on the forum. But I'll just say that there are some limits with regard to the number of submissions from specific organizations and how we define organization, that kind of thing is on the forum. So I'll encourage you to check that out.
All right. Next question is again from Muzamil. Are mini LEDs or micro LEDs eligible?
So I guess I'll say that we're opening this competition that's intended to be for solid state light emitting diode technologies. And so if you can reasonably describe your technology, your concept, you know, initially, what we're talking about obviously here today, if you can describe it that way, then we're going to encourage it.
Awesome. Next question comes from Derek. The NEC and NFPA codes are outdated based on the potential safety of new solutions that are typically regulated power instead of unregulated, like AC. Will the L Prize consider solutions that may require updates to the NEC?
Yeah, I'll take that one. It's a very good question, not one that I think we've considered yet. So I think we'd like to take a little bit of time, and we'll answer that one in written form on the forum as soon as possible.
And the next one, kind of a, oh, did anyone have anything to add? Okay, so the next one is kind of a fun one, also from Muzamil. Who was the last winner of the L Prize? Do we know that?
So for the prize that was awarded 10 years ago, it was Philips that was awarded for their 60-watt replacement. Yeah. Thanks for that trip down memory lane.
And then as of right now, our last question comes from Rachel. The presentation specifies that concept phase applies to commercial lighting. Is there a future program plan to foster innovation in residential lighting, or would residential concepts be considered?
So I guess I'll start by saying that we're constantly looking for ideas for what we could do in the future, and so I'll suggest especially if you've got particular ideas that are about how we could carry residential lighting above and beyond where it already is today. And if a prize is the right approach to that you think of, I think that's a great question and a great subject for a potential comment. Thanks for that.
All right. And the last question comes from Erica. Will there be a replay available? So I am recording the webinar and I will post it to HeroX after we're done today. So yes, it will be available. I'll also post the slide deck as well. I guess we can give a couple more minutes for any other questions that come in. Oh, we just had a couple. Hold on. All right. I'm not sure what this means necessarily, but a question from Derek. Price performance queue? Could you elaborate, Derek?
Derek had asked an earlier question, which was more of a comment. So I didn't actually see a question in it, but he was suggesting that there should be a price consideration. He was commenting that it's easy to make the items you requested, but doing it as a disruptive price compared to traditional solutions seems to be a more important goal.
And I'll actually jump in there, Gabe. Just because we did talk a little bit about the economic impact, I talked a little bit about the economic impact during my part. And I'll say that, Derek, you're spot on that, of course, price, other economic considerations matter an awful lot. And I'll say that with respect to the manufacturing and installation phase, I'll note that we're currently, right, the draft of the rules that will be finalized once we've received all the comments and we're opening that phase formally. That draft set of rules that you can see is purposefully silent on the mechanism by which those products get into buildings and get installed. And so I would think, naively, as a person who's not participating in the market in the same way that, for example, profit-seeking entities are, I would think that price would be an important consideration. Sales channels might be an important consideration for all that, but then also so are other kinds of partnership opportunities. As you may have noticed, this prize was opened by the Secretary of Energy at the Better Building Summit. We're looking forward to lots of ways that people can find interesting and innovative ways of partnering to get these into the real economy where they're going to benefit people. So thanks for the question. Great thought. And we're looking to see innovation in this way as well.
All right. So we had two more questions come in. One is from Carol. Hypothetically, if there are legitimate issues discovered through the comment form related to evaluation factors, which may already be frozen in the concept phase, is your intent to make those changes in advance of phase 2?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So as we mentioned, the next two phases of the competition are presented as draft in the official rules, and part of the purpose of that comment form is to collect input about any revisions that might be or should be made to those future phases. And if we did make any changes to the next two phases, they would be announced at the opening of those phases. So hope that answers.
All right, and from Tobias, can the winners of phase 1 choose their partners for phase 2, or will they be chosen for us?
I just want to stress that we'll be, of course, addressing other questions related to teaming on the website. For this one, I'll say generally, we're going to not involve ourselves. The plan is to not involve DOE or any of the folks involved with administration of the prize in the creation of teams. We're interested in opening up these teaming RFIs and to create information, curate information, publish information that people want to publish about their willingness and availability for teaming. We're not planning on being involved with a team creation or working together process any more than that.
All right, so those are all the questions that we've received. So again, if you submitted a comment, be sure to download that comment form and then send us your comments to the lprize@nrel.gov email. And then we'll assess them for possible changes for the future phases. And if you have any other questions that come up, also send them to lprize@nrel.gov, and we will post all of these questions that we've received in the webinar to that forum, and any additional questions we've received moving forward to the forum on HeroX as well. Any last words, Gabe, Brian, Kate?
Thank you all for joining. Really excited to see what comes of this. The questions so far have been great. We're really encouraged by the level of engagement, and looking forward to seeing your comments and further questions and, of course, submissions.
Likewise. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.